Oh my God, you guys. I am so, so, so excited for this conversation. Right before we pressed record, I was like, Karen, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. And I know we can't get to it all, but we're going to get to a lot of it. Karen Eldad, Coach Karen, welcome to Seeing Other People.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I really am so honored to have you here and so excited for this conversation. I think it's one that so many people need to hear. So, for those who don't know Karen, she is a leading executive coach. She is the author of Gilded, which is all about breaking free from the cage of ambition, perfectionism, and pursuing more. And this is something that is so relatable to so many of us. I mean, in career, in our personal lives, in our dating lives, like we all are so overambitious, and sometimes our desire for more is preventing us from seeing what we have. And sometimes we're not even sure if what we have is what we want. So there's so much to dive into. Before we jump in headfirst, I would love for you to share a little bit of your story of how you got here with the Seeing Other People family.
Okay. It would be an immense pleasure, but first I wanted to add a couple of really important details for all the listeners. Number one, I have married 23 couples. I take full responsibility for helping people reach the consciousness that allows them to find unconditional love and to follow it through. I am also responsible for people waking up to the fact that their marriage is dead and to correcting the patterns in their dating life. This is extraordinarily important for me. Even an executive coach will tell you, anyone worth their salt anyway will tell you, that if love ain't working, ain't nothing working. We have
Mhm.
to fix that first. The second thing I want to say is tomorrow I am celebrating my 7th anniversary. I am a happily married woman, and I've been divorced before, so I know I'm happily married for sure. So this is really something that I'm truly passionate about. My story actually begins with the Faustian bargain, the deal with the devil I cut many years ago in order to land, quote unquote, that first marriage. When I was 31 years old, I decided to accept what society was telling me. I was about to die alone, miserable, sad, become one of those creatures from Sex and the City who, to me, were incredibly sad. I lived in New York City. I actually did keep my shoes in my oven
Oh my
and all
God.
of the cliches. And I read a terrible, terrible garbage book by a woman named Lori Gottlieb, who's since then become a best selling author and is a therapist, and it was called Marry Him, the Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough. In it, she argued that if you're 35 or over, this is an emergency and you better lower your unreasonable standards and you need to get
Wow.
married right away. And this was just one of my many neuroses. I, as an ambitious person, as a perfectionist, as a person who prided themselves of always doing everything right, I could not afford to get this wrong. So what did I do? Guess. By the way, this is pre-apps. I literally hustled my ass off for dates. And what that means is I went on every single date I was ever asked on. Blind dates? You got it. Is he bald? Absolutely. Oh my God, an accountant? I love accountants. I'm totally, totally in. I went
Yep.
on like 3 dates a week. And then within just a couple of months, because let's be honest, imagine this at 31. I closed the deal like this. Boom. He was everything I wanted. And here's what was on my checklist: tall, speaks 3 languages. I don't know why, but that
What?
really
What?
mattered to me.
Do
Low
you?
chest. This, I have to tell you, very important to me. Banker, because everybody knows in New York City, that's what you're looking for. And had other superficial nonsense, douchey accoutrements that I really cared about at the time.
Why do you think you cared about these things? Also,
Because
did you speak 3 languages?
I speak four actually.
Okay,
Thank you
okay.
very much. I speak four. That's known as a polyglot. But the reason is, I really believe that most of my worldview at the time, and you'll read this in Gilded, was informed by a true desire for significance. I wanted something that looked right and looked good. I wanted something just like my resume wanted something. My resume wanted a title, and it wanted a clear path to a climbing in the social hierarchy. And most of us, we are social animals. We are, unbeknownst to us, chasing these linear benchmarks. And that's what makes us so externally focused and so susceptible to external validation, that we completely miss the emotional matching. the
Yeah.
real alignment with your soul. This is a human you will walk through life with. There is nothing that matters other than emotional alignment with the soul, but I couldn't get anywhere near that. And so I chose him. After 2 years, it became very obvious to me that I was married to somebody who was abusive. I was in a miserable marriage. It was a lot like that Julia Roberts movie. It's from a very long time ago. It's called Sleeping with the Enemy, where she was with an obsessive, compulsive, emotionally abusive person. That's what happened to me. So I find myself with everything I've ever wanted. I live in a very big house. I have a glamorous career. I look great on Instagram. I mean, everybody wanted my life on Instagram. And at home, I'm miserable. I sleep in the library because I can't stand the sight of it and because I'm terrified, frankly, for my life. I was alone. I was isolated. I was miserable. And I finally one day found myself in that house in Zurich, by the way, for a New Yorker, the city that never stops stopping, literally like death, listening to a really sad song and feeling like my only way out of this horrible, horrible mistake I've made is to kill myself. How did an overachiever get from getting everything I want, looking great on Instagram, to the only way out of this is to kill myself? Luckily, by the grace of God, I think, I snapped out of it in that shower. I don't really know what
Wow.
happened, but I remember being out and having just one thought: I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know what it's going to take, but this ends now.
Wow.
By then, I'm 33, I think, 34. And that was it. The first thing I had to do was take a blowtorch to that life, get divorced, start over. I actually did end up losing all of my possessions in a fire. Both of my cats died within 2 weeks of themselves, which was horrific. I couldn't
God.
find a job for 6 months. Very humbling. Basically, everything gets stripped down to the studs. Everything I'd been using to validate myself goes down to the studs. But luckily, so did my entire worldview.
Mhm.
This is when I start looking into self help seriously, something I had scoffed at up until then, coaching very seriously, going to Tony Robbins seminars, doing crazy shit like that. And it little by little changed my life. And unbeknownst to me, it changed my dating game too.
Wow.
That's what led us to here and to Ryan and to everything we have today.
Wow. I thank you for sharing that. And first of all, you're such an incredible storyteller. I'm sure many people have told you that, but I also need to add
Thank
that
you.
in. I'm so sorry you went through all of that. It's so, first of all, beautiful to see how you were able to, pull yourself out of it. And we'll get more into that. But I actually recently had an episode about like why your whole life falling apart might actually be the best thing to happen to you. I'm curious, when were 31, when you met your ex and when you said like, yeah, like this is the person I'm going to marry, like at that time, did you think that this was right? Like did you feel happy or were you like, no. Okay, you're shaking your head.
No, you know, you know when you're in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Just dismiss the intuition because you are getting something out of this. You are getting your need met for safety, for looking good on Instagram. At least you're in a relationship, right? Don't you remember that line from When Harry Met Sally? At least you can tell people that you are married.
Mhm. And I relate to that. I mean, all I wanted in my early mid 20s was to be in a relationship. Like that's all I wanted and
Yeah.
I wasn't happy in so many other aspects of my life because of how much weight I put on having a partner. And because I didn't have that, I felt like, well, everything else in my life must suck then and I must suck, but that like wasn't necessarily the case. That's how I felt. So,
Yeah, you know how you feel,
yeah.
but you do know. I actually remember walking down the aisle to that first wedding with my best friend and looking at her and going, I want to go home.
Oh,
And
God.
her literally saying, darling, in her British accent, darling, the train has left the station.
Oh my God.
To this day, I blame her for that marriage. That's a joke, of course. But my point is, I knew this was off. We
Yeah.
always know this is a Faustian bargain. We always know this is a deal with the devil. We are selling our soul for safety. We
Mhm.
know. But by then, we have sunken costs to deal with.
Right.
And also, we're terrified of starting over. Your last episode that aired was why dating actually is worse than ever before. I beg to differ.
Mm.
I think it's always been terrible. And that fact is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Your job is to make the decision that it won't be terrible for you. That's what coaching is all about. Maybe it is, and that's irrelevant because as for me, I will have a good experience around here. I deserve a good experience. And when you condition yourself to believing that you deserve a good experience, you become allergic to what I tolerated before,
Mhm.
to that bad feeling. You never negotiate with yourself in your mind again. Oh, well, it's going to be okay. How bad could it be?
Mhm. How
Worst comes to worst, I get divorced. I remember thinking that. You know what? As someone who's been through a divorce, let me tell you, you're not going to like it. That's a pretty big matzo ball to go through. So you might want to save yourself that time if you can
Yeah.
on time.
How did you go from that moment of like, I'm not gonna put up with this anymore, like, I'm gonna change things, to meeting Ryan?
Oh, well, the first thing I had to do was make a decision that I'm done. And what when you really are done, you know this. You're done. There's nothing anyone can do to change your mind about it. That's a wonderful feeling. And that's the first thing that everybody needs to get to is to admit there is a problem and to make the decision that they're done. I like to say that my new book Gilded should have been called Workaholics Anonymous because it's a 12-step program just like Alcoholics Anonymous and it begins with the exact same first step. Admit that you have a problem and decide to make a change. You
Yeah.
can't decide to make a change if you don't believe that you have a problem, by the way. And many people are spending so much time in their head saying, it's fine, it's fine. Hey, this is fine. This is good enough for me.
Mhm.
Or arguing for what is. Dating is terrible. What do you want me to do about it? That they're actually not willing to make a decision that this ends now. If that's where you are, please enjoy purgatory. Have another helping of your neurosis. I cannot get you to Ryanville. But if you are ready for Ryanville, that's the first thing you're going to have to do. The second thing you're going to have to do is realize that everything you've done up until now that created the garbage results was wrong. And if everything that you've been doing up until now created garbage results and was wrong, then the opposite must be right. That harkens to a great episode of Seinfeld known as The Opposite, when
Mhm.
George Costanza, a Yutz, finally realizes that every impulse he's ever had has guided him in the wrong direction and starts to do the opposite. Do you remember that episode?
I'm actually watching through for the first time now. Still
It's
in
literally the
season
best
1,
season.
so or we're early, we're early.
Brilliant series. You'll love it. And you'll see that when he does make that decision, everything starts going really well for him. This is coaching. Coaching reframes the way you think, it changes how you think. It teaches you a new system for thinking that is counterintuitive to you. It is literally counterintuitive. That's the whole book is going to annoy the crap out of you because you'll be like, how would this possibly work? And then you'll try it and you'll be like, oh my God, this works? Yes. And then by the time you're done, you're thinking differently, you're getting very different results, and you start to really receive completely different things from the universe. Lori
Mhm.
Gottlieb was completely wrong. I
Mhm.
never should have compromised any single one of my true preferences. I never should have been afraid of showing people who I am and standing up for what I deserve. Because when I did, I found Ryan who was ready to let me be exactly who I am. And that, my friend, that's home.
Yeah.
That's love. Love is when you're with somebody and it doesn't feel like there is a foreign object in the room anymore. Love is home. Home can only exist when we are exactly what we are and we're allowed to be.
Had you not read that book at 31, had you not suddenly felt like, "Oh my god, this is an emergency, I need to meet somebody yesterday." Do you think you knew at your core who you were enough to have found the right person for you?
Of course not, because otherwise that book never would have crossed my consciousness. Two things had to collaborate. There had to be garbage material. And by the way, even Louise Hay, the very wonderful Louise Hay, had garbage material at the time. So did Oprah. But there also had to be a garbage disposition. In other words, I also had to be lack thinking or
Yeah.
scarcity thinking. I had to be terrified of dying alone, of becoming a Sex in the City spinster in order to receive that message. Two things have to be working at the same time. And I have to accept responsibility for that. That's known as personal agency. That also is what gets you out of it. What gets you out of it is understanding you still have agency and you can make better decisions.
Mhm.
That's it. That's literally it. So there's no reason to condemn myself for the previous life. I did what I knew to do with where I was.
And it led you here.
Luckily, I decided I could do better. And
Mhm.
I followed that rabbit down a hole, and that ended much better.
So I want to talk about that, but I could do better because this is a cycle that people get stuck in dating. And I know in your book Gilded, you talk about this concept of the gilded cage. And I feel like the dating version of the gilded cage is like chasing this idea of the perfect partner and always thinking, okay, well, like, I really want to find the perfect person. So like this person's good, but maybe the next person I swipe on, the next person I go out with could be 1% better. And that's where people, I feel like, end up missing out on really wonderful potential partners because they're chasing this idea of perfection.
That's right. And that therein lies the clear distinction. The distinction is not that you will find the perfect person, is that you will align with yourself as and start seeing yourself as perfect. I have really bad news for everybody out there. Anyone you marry, anyone, even Ryan. Ryan is magnificent. He looks like a movie star from the 70s. He's so sweet. He's so decent. He's so self reliant. He can fix things like anything in the house breaks.
That's
Short
awesome.
of electrical, the man can fix it.
My
It's
husband can't.
amazing,
I'm
right?
really jealous.
I know. Alas, even he's going to start annoying you. It's another human being. They all have shortcomings. Shockingly, I do too. I know this
Mhm.
was really hard for me to understand, but I do too. To another person, you will always appear a little bit irritating at some given time. In other words, we're all going to run out of steam. That's just the way it is. That's all familiarity too. But the one person who really needs to function in this relationship vis a vis themselves is you. That's pretty much it. The real alignment you're seeking will never be met externally. Never. You could marry Giselle and still make the decision after a couple of years. She's kind of annoying. She's being a nag about my job. Hello, Tom Brady. But you really liking you really respecting you coming into full alignment with who you are will start to allow you through that self compassion development, which is a skill you have to take the time to truly develop through the empathy you can give to yourself, will see others with kind eyes too.
Mhm.
The kindness and forgiveness you will find for others will allow you to love them more. And therefore, they will always be enough because you will finally be enough. If you are not enough to you, again, I hate to break it to you, they're going to start irritating you within 18 months. When the sex starts to fade, you're going to start to see all of their little glitches, their little bugaboos, and it's all going to become miserable.
Where do you suggest somebody start with figuring out who they really are, learning to like themselves, respect themselves, feel like they're enough, feel like they're deserving of this? Because I
Mhm.
know so many people listening struggle with that, where dating is hard, whether it's harder now or it's always been hard, dating is hard.
Yeah,
And I
always.
think we end up really taking rejection so personally. And even when it's not rejection, it's just not working. And we're trying so hard and we're not finding our person. It starts to make us question, like, am I enough? So, for those people listening, what advice would you give them in terms of like beginning or progressing that journey of feeling enough?
Great. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to answer in principle. And then if you'd like to throw me a personal question about you, we're going to
Mhm.
show people how this works in practice.
Okay,
How does that sound?
let's
You
do
up
it.
for it?
Yes.
Okay. In theory, there are only two first steps. The first is get sick of your own freaking excuses. Just get sick of the narrative. You can't take it anymore. Literally admit that this is a problem and you're sick of it. One of the things that I was really sick of back when I started to reach for coaching was a thought known as I can't afford this. I became allergic to it. I can't afford to go to my friend's wedding in Argentina. I can't afford to go to a Tony Robbins seminar. I can afford to invest in the thing that I know will get me out of this. I couldn't hear it anymore. I could not disallow my own happiness for another second. I couldn't fall for second best and compromise my soul in the department of money for another second of my life. And it's the same in love, by the way. But
Mhm.
money is kind of easier to explain to people, right? That's the first. Drop it. Just drop it. Make the decision that you will at least pursue another avenue. Start to be open at least to the books and the podcasts that are trying to take you there. Number two, you are going to have to start to learn how to reframe your condition. That means you will have to learn to engage with all of the matzo ball thoughts that you're thinking, the really dark ones, the limiting ones. Dating is hard. Game is rigged against me. Rejection means I am bad. You have to learn how to reframe them. In order to reframe them, the theoretical mindfulness tactic that I teach you right up front in the book, every time I speak anywhere, is the pause principle. Number one, is the problem, or is the way I'm about to react the problem? As soon as you meet a challenge, just go through these three questions in your head. Number one, is the problem the problem? Is how you're about to react the problem. That's why it's called a pause, by the way. Stop, think. Number two, is there any other way to see this? And number three, what is a possible other opportunity here? Now, let me walk you through a scenario and then let's coach you. You ready?
Let's do it.
Number one, dating is hard. I've been dating since I was 15. Where is he? Remember, that's a Charlotte York line from Sex and the City. Old timey show, unfortunately still popular, even though it is absolute trash. Where is he? Is the problem I haven't found him yet? Or is the fact that I'm whining like this, making this 10 times more difficult for myself, creating a situation in which I believe that this is aggressively horrible and I'm at some kind of a loss?
Mhm.
Exhaustion, is that a bigger problem? What's the answer? Whining is the bigger problem.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's the whining, it's the exhaustion. I think it's
Exhaustion, it's a bigger problem because you're about to take some bait that'll take you down a rabbit hole that's going to make this worse.
yeah.
At least if you agree that the problem is less of a problem, you stand a chance of solving it. Do you want another helping of neurosis or do you want to solve the problem? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Number two, is there any other way to see this? Yes. Number one, you haven't met him yet. Number two, I'm sorry it's taking that long. It takes that long for a lot of people. It's taking that long for Jennifer Lopez. You don't see her losing enthusiasm.
Mhm.
Number three, maybe it's taking this long because someone really special is ready for you. Number four, Karen is living proof that this can happen, even at the ancient age of 40. Look how happy she is. Isn't it worth it?
Mhm.
Kris Jenner, 70, killing it in the love department. Who cares? Why are you making this matter so much? Which brings me to question three. What's the opportunity? The opportunity is chill out. The opportunity is try again. The opportunity is you will find true love. The opportunity is you will stay open and cheerful. That's it. That's how this works. So, step one, get tired of your own excuses. Step two, start becoming really dedicated to reframing practices. They will not work every single time. Not all of my Pilates classes are exceptional, but I still go every day. And as
Mhm.
a result of that, my ass is still where it is. You see what I'm saying? We get better with consistency. Consistency and practice is the only thing you need to buy into. You do not need to buy into any of the premises I've offered you, just
Mhm.
to trying your darndest. That's it.
What about when you feel like you are? Like you feel like you're doing everything that you can
Oh,
and
yes,
you're
that's
being
true.
patient.
Now let's talk about you. Let's make this personal.
Okay.
I've done everything, Karen. Go ahead. Explain the situation to me and let's help you reframe this.
Okay. I have been injured for the last probably 4 or 5 months, a running injury as I've recently fallen in love with running. I have gone to doctors. I have taken breaks as recommended by doctors. I have been to multiple physical therapists multiple times a week. I've been doing the exercises at home. I'm still injured. I'm trying to return to running slowly but surely. I'm still injured and it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
All I want to do is run. And I am starting to lose hope that I'm not
Mhm.
going to be able to run the half marathon that I signed up for, that I'm
Oh,
not going to be able to run
that's
the
what's got
marathon.
your attention. That's it. It's the half marathon.
Mhm.
It's the deadline. That's what's causing you stress. In dating, what's causing you stress is the fictitious deadline in your head. And you'll
Mhm.
argue with me, but Karen, it's real. It's real. Mm, I believe it's real. The deadline is real, Karen.
But
I will die if I do not make this deadline.
But so I was talking to my husband about this the other day, and he said, like, what if you just took, like, he said exactly that, like, forget about the half marathon, forget about the marathon. But the reason I want to do those things is because of how much I enjoy running.
Oh,
I
but
already
you
missed the
are.
first
You're letting your ego run the show so much, it's
yeah.
convincing you that this is a desire of the soul, Karen.
When I run, I'm really happy,
I'm sure you are. And I don't see the problem. You will run again.
but I want to run now
Why?
because I
You will run
really
again.
enjoy it.
Mm.
Because
You can do other things that are enjoyable and allow your body to heal.
I haven't found anything that's as enjoyable.
You will. You
I've
haven't looked very hard.
I've tried.
You're watching Seinfeld. You're going to get pretty freaking close. Here's the deal. That happened to Brene Brown too. She talks about this in a great book called Dare to Lead. She had a book tour. Nothing she loves more than a book tour. And she had just started Pilates. She was obsessed with Pilates. And then she fell, had a concussion, and couldn't do either.
Mhm.
But I want to do this. There's nothing that brings me more joy. I have to do this. I have signed a contract with grown-ups, publishers. I have to do this. And the doctors went, we don't care.
Mhm.
Your ego is in control. And it's taunting your soul. It's tricking you into actually believing that it's your soul talking. It's not your soul. Your soul wants to rest. Why do you think it sent you an injury? It wants a break. It wants you to learn to love yourself even without the accoutrements. It wants you to learn to love yourself even when you're sick. It wants you to let yourself be sick. The ego never wants you to be sick or grow old or have any shortcomings. That's why it keeps looking for partners who validate us. But your soul knows who you are and is okay. It really wants to get better so it can run again and not cause further damage. Number one, is the problem the problem? I'm injured and I can't run. A problem? Or is the fact that I'm frustrated and obsessed with a fictitious deadline, a temporary deadline, a bigger problem? Let's just be objective. Talk to a friend. What would you say to a friend?
Yeah, there will always
Yeah,
be more half marathons.
you'll be fine. There's another one next year, and you're
Mhm.
going to come back stronger than ever, baby. And this is going to be better than ever. Number
Oh,
two,
but
is
what
there
if I
any other
can't
way
do
to
it
see
next
this?
year? What if I
Are you
can't?
Oh, well, okay, you could be dead, you're right. You could be dead next year. But if you're not dead, there's still an option to do it. So let's just go with glass half full here. It's very likely you won't slip on a banana peel and you will heal. You seem pretty young to me, and I know how the body works.
Mhm.
Number two, is there any other way to see this? Yeah, I can chill. Number two, if I decide to force myself to short circuit this, I may cause further damage. I may cause permanent damage.
Mhm.
Number three, I got lucky. It's not permanent.
Mhm.
I can heal this. Number four, Seinfeld is on. I can enjoy Seinfeld. I may want to turn to Karen's chapter 7 and maybe discover other things that light me up.
Yeah.
Maybe really think about purpose here. Maybe this obsession is covering something up that I'm not willing to deal with that I may want to deal with.
Mhm.
Finally, what's the opportunity here? Read chapter 7, deal with what needs to be dealt with, get healthy, heal with enthusiasm, go back next year, go back stronger. There's a wonderful movie on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix right now, starring that lady who's married to Warren Beatty, Annette Bening, and it's called Naiad. Have you watched it?
I have not. I'll add it to
Naiad
my
is about a
list.
woman in her 60s, who in her when she was 28, tried to do the impossible swim from Florida to Cuba,
Oh my
the longest
god.
personal swim anyone has ever done, failed, was bitter about it, couldn't believe it, was really angry that the passage of time was making this more and more impossible. She was never going to be able to do this again. Then she's in her 60s. Everybody literally tells her, "You are postmenopausal. You will die." And you won't just die, you're going to die after like 2 miles.
Oh god.
It cannot be done. It cannot be done. It cannot be done. You've missed your deadline. Guess what Diana Nyad did at
Swim from
64?
Florida to Cuba.
Amen, baby. And she's still the only person who's ever done it.
It's crazy.
64. So don't come back and say, "Oh, what if I can't do it?" You have 40 years to heal. You'll be fine.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Okay. Okay.
All the point is not to be right. The point is to be happy, is
Yeah.
to show you that you have other options. If you have other options, you're going to be okay. As long
Mhm.
as you think this is my only shot and if I miss it, I will die. You're moving into the clutches of perfectionism. You are moving into the territory of unreasonableness. You will have a very, very hard time.
Yeah.
I don't want you to have a hard time. I don't want you to cause yourself the consequences I caused myself. I want you to be happy and free.
Well, I think that point about happiness is really crucial because I think that is what so many people feel like when I find a partner, I will be happy. Like when I
Yeah.
get married, I will be happy. And we're always focused on the next thing. We're always focused on the one thing we feel like we lack. Meanwhile, our lives are filled with so many other things. And maybe we're unhappy. Maybe we are happy, though. Maybe there are other things that we could add to our lives to make ourselves happier. And maybe a partner, the wrong partner, would actually make us more unhappy.
Well, not really. The equation is wrong. You're right. That is the equation most people have. Me plus X equals happy. Me plus Ryan equals happy. Me plus more cats equals happy.
The
Me plus
best
Seinfeld.
version of myself equals happy.
That's right. And actually, that means that the formula is inherently me plus happy equals Ryan.
Mm, yeah,
Have you ever been somewhere magnificent in a miserable mood?
100%.
I have. Was the magnificent place helpful? No. Have you ever been somewhere kind of crappy in a really good mood?
Absolutely. And it's all been about who I've been with or the anxiety surrounding who I'm not with and want to be with.
Well, you may want to turn that inward, my friend,
Yep.
because I'm happy even in garbage places.
Yeah.
The surroundings have very little effect on me.
Yeah.
I'm just happy.
Yeah.
If I'm not happy, I'm going to go to bed, watch Seinfeld for 2 hours, get back to normal,
Mhm.
meditate, meditate, be comfortable again within yourself. Me plus happy equals good. Me minus happy equals terrible, no matter what you introduce into the equation. Here's what young people don't understand, those who are dating: no unhappy journey has a happy ending, no compromise has a happy ending. The only way to happy ending is be happy. Be happy and fulfilled within yourself. No one will ever be able to do that for you. Nobody is responsible for your happiness. Guess what? If somebody is responsible for your happiness, they're also responsible for your unhappiness. That, in the world of therapy, is called codependency.
Mhm.
It's very problematic to make other people responsible for our happiness when we can find it within ourselves.
Yeah. Do you believe the phrase, you need to love yourself before you can be loved by someone else?
I don't just believe it, I know it with certainty. Before you learn to love yourself, you're never loving anybody else. You're doing what I used to do before. You're projecting. Please, please give me that self esteem. Give it to me.
Mhm.
And then when it's down sometimes, your self esteem goes down with it.
Real quick.
Yeah, which makes you kind of destructive. I don't know. I was remembering the other day I was on a podcast and I remember this one time some guy, I guess, ghosted me or something. And I rang his doorbell like 80 times.
Oh my God.
And I was thinking, that's so funny. That's such a funny thing to remember because clearly that's what happens. You literally take the rejection as I am worthless. So then you start behaving like a maniac.
Mhm.
But if I knew now what I knew then, what I know now about myself, which is I'm fantastic, I would have been like, all right, well, I guess we're not seeing each other anymore and just moved on with my life.
Yeah.
Really no big deal. Literally no big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being like probably the most like broken I ever felt. And I wasn't hearing from the guy who I was in a very unhealthy relationship with.
Mm.
And my assumption was, well, he must be out on a date with another girl. And I need to, go insert myself into the situation or
Yes.
catch him or have him prove me wrong. And so I waited outside his apartment. It was probably like December. It was freezing. I went uptown 50 blocks and stood outside his apartment building until he came home because I just wanted him to tell me that I was worth something and that I was enough because I
Oh,
couldn't tell myself that.
let's go back right now and give her a hug.
Right.
Let's go back right now and give Karen, in her green dress, freaking out in front of somebody's doorbell, a big hug. It's okay, sweetheart.
Hmm.
It's okay. We are never more lost than when we believe we lost love. And that's why developing self love is so important because you never lose love again.
Yeah.
You can't. There's a part of you that can't be hurt. So
Hmm.
you're never ringing somebody's doorbell 80 times again.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. There's something I want to ask you, kind of switching gears to career and
Yeah.
relationships. I know a lot of my listeners and my former self as well have experienced this situation where they meet somebody, they go on a date with somebody, they go on more dates with that person, things are going well. And then they're told something along the lines of, I really like you. I can't be in a relationship right now. I'm too focused on my career. I really don't want to settle down with anyone until, I reach the level of achievement that I aspire to have. Talk to me about that. Why some people feel like they can't pursue or prioritize their personal relationships until their career is where they want to be.
That's a lie. They're just lying.
To themselves or to the person.
No, they're lying to the person.
So it's one of those, I don't want a relationship with you.
Yes, exactly. It's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
That's it. But believe me, if they met Giselle,
Mhm.
they'd go all in. It's not true. Love is undeniable. Love is a force. It's a huge force. You can't not go with it. It's not possible. Have you ever been in love? Everybody out there knows this feeling. Hopefully, I hope so.
Mhm.
Anyone who's ever had a broken heart, like what you felt before, has been in love. Well, what are you going to do against it? Please hit pause. I have a career to deal with, so can you please slow it down a bit? No, it's like a freight train.
Mhm.
So that's just a lie. It's a sweet lie, I guess. I hope it's a well meaning lie, but it's a lie.
What about the people who won't even let themselves get to that point? Like they'll go on a few dates with somebody and cut it off.
Yeah, they have issues to deal with that are emotionally complex and they may want to look at it. But either way, I'm very happy to tell them to their face, you are lying.
Mhm.
You are lying to other people. I don't care what you say to yourself. You are lying to other people. Not okay.
Yeah.
Because
And
it is a lie.
this is where your reframe comes in handy of like, okay, you can sit there and complain about like, oh, well, I met this person and they want to focus on their career. Like, why do I keep meeting people like this? Or, you can say, okay, like this person, for whatever reason, doesn't want to prioritize a relationship with me. I'm going to go forward and work towards finding
That's
somebody who
exactly
does.
right. Because otherwise, if you're just accepting the bait, then technically what's happening is you're ignoring the fact that you yourself are emotionally unavailable.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is law. This is very, very basic armchair psychology, but it's
Hmm.
law. When Ryan and I met, my career was just taking off. I started to be on the road a lot, like very Mrs. Maisel situation, right? Like you can make the choice very, very easily to be completely consumed by a dream finally coming true. It never occurred to me to say, "I'm sorry, if you don't mind, can you just wait until like this plane steadies before we engage in a romantic relationship?"
Hmm.
No, I'm very happy to figure this out with you. We will figure out whatever compromises we need to make with our lives in order to be with each other, but you are non negotiable.
How did you two meet?
Tinder. It was
Ah,
my third Tinder date.
oh my God. Do you remember who matched with who based on do you remember anything about his
Yes,
profile that stuck out?
absolutely. I remember his profile and I know he remembers mine. They were identical. both of us we had very, very honest profiles with very honest pictures. That means no pictures of Karen on a floaty in a pool saying that my only preference is avocado toast. None of that nonsense. I was like, hi, I'm a feminist. I'm looking for a true equal. I read a lot. If you haven't read Sapiens, don't even swipe right. And I really love animals. This is a package deal sitch. Ryan's profile was nearly identical. I'm from here and there. I read way too much than is more than is good for me. The dog and I are a package deal.
Wow.
We are bibliophiles who love animals and who are truly egalitarian. And even though my husband and I have very, very different behavioral styles, he's not very animated, doesn't like talking very much, and hates a dinner party. We are identical in our souls.
Yeah.
We found equals.
And that is why we have to put actual information about
Yes,
ourselves in
yes,
our
this is why
profiles.
we say don't lie. Don't lie. The fastest way to be enlightened, by the way, the fastest way to feel good. In the book, I literally have a chapter called Stop Lying, and it mentions George Costanza from Seinfeld, because only in his case is it cute or funny. In our lives, just don't lie. Watch out. Be careful.
Mhm.
Even tiny little lies to help you, I don't know, get past the filters so that more people swipe with you. Very big mistake. Really big mistake.
You want to attract the right people and deter the wrong people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You want to deter the wrong people. Exactly.
Yeah. You should not have everybody come to you. You don't
That's
want that.
exactly.
That's a waste of time and energy.
I say that about my business all the time. People are like, "Don't you think you'll be isolating people by talking about overachievers and by talking about people who are very well educated or who are successful in their businesses?" No, I know who's going to do well in this program and who's going to find this obnoxious.
Mhm.
That's not a problem. It's not a judgment. It's it's selective,
Yeah,
and that's better for me and for you.
absolutely. You have worked with so many high profile clients. What is a surprising lesson that you've learned from them?
Yes, they were all a giant ball of anxiety. I watched a really amazing stand-up last year, Brett Goldstein. He's
Love
the guy who plays Roy Kent
the
on Ted
best.
Lasso.
He's
P.S.
here. He's
Totally my
there.
opposite
He's
class.
every fucking where, Roy
Exactly.
Cat.
Just love him so much. So he did a stand up and he said that one of the things that really startled him the most, he always thought that when he started to go behind those doors where all the famous people were, he was going to find nirvana, paradise, magnificent people who were enlightened beings and better than all of us. And all he found was rooms full of people with very high anxiety who smoked a lot. And I tell people this all the time: the higher the achievement, the higher the neurosis. By the way, they are strongly correlated. I even mentioned some studies in my book. People who are high achieving in general, in other words, intensely focused, obsessively focused, are much more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety. So that's it. Don't let it surprise you and stop buying this phony baloney nonsense on Instagram. Nobody's life is better than yours. Nobody has got it figured out. You are just fine. You have every single chance to have everything that you want. And I always say that from both ends. In other words, for the very high, successful, achieving people, come down to earth, okay? Just relax. You're not special. And to the
Mhm.
people who think they're not special, you are. You are much more special than you think you are. I hope
That's
that helps everybody out there to realize we are the same and we are
yeah,
all going to die one day and we're all just walking each other home. It's better to just know your mortality and develop a reverence for yourself and for life because you're not going to be here forever.
absolutely. If you could go back and give your 20s, early 30s, younger, ambitious self advice, what would you say?
I've had that conversation many times. And I've also had a conversation with the people who have slighted me. The conversation with myself always says, be easy on yourself. You're doing way better than you think. You have time. It's going to be okay. It ends well. And the conversation I have with the men who have slighted me is always, thank you so much. You did me a huge favor. I really hope you're having a good life. That's how we rewrite history.
Mhm.
And that's how we change our future.
I love that. This has been so incredible, Karen. Thank you so much for being here. Final question. Every guest on the podcast gets asked this.
I've been waiting.
What is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you've ever received or have to give?
Never settle, ever. True love does not compromise. True love is a win win. In marriage, you are seeking a win win. You and him against the problem. You and them against the problem. Not you win, they lose. Told you so. And in dating, the same. You deserve true love, and you should never settle for anything else because it is a gilded cage.
And it
And I
is
would
the most
never go,
beautiful book cover ever, for the
thank you.
record.
I would never go back willingly into a cage ever.
Mhm.
So I hope that saves everybody a lot of time.
Absolutely. Karen, thank you so much for being here. Where can everybody find you and where can they get Gilded?
Thank you so much. Gilded is available wherever books are sold, and it is the number one release on
Yeah,
Amazon in the
it is.
categories of anxiety and business management. What's up?
We love those
And
categories.
I'm so excited. I know they're related, by the way, business and anxiety. That's hilarious.
True.
And my website is KarenEldad.com. Karen is spelled with two E's, or I'm at Coach Karen on Instagram, which is the best way to DM me, to talk to me, all of that good stuff. Thank you
Amazing.
so much for having me. This was a really amazing conversation.
Thank you. And guys, I have all of that linked in the show notes. Send this episode to someone who needs to hear it. We all know probably 15 people who need to hear it. Please do them a favor, send it to them, and follow Karen. Again, everything is linked in the show notes. Get Gilded, and I love you all.